Dustin Tibbitts here, financial advisor with Jazz Wealth Managers, because it says so right there on the shirt, even though our logo has changed. A little bit more fresh and maybe a little more musical. Anyways, today we're going to go back into the dose score here and take a look at someone who I find has a little bit of issues. So let's get started. All right, if you don't know, this is our dose score platform. It is unique to us. We built it, we make it, we manage it, we expand on it. So we've got Louis here. The name has been changed, of course. He's 32 years old. He's married, filing jointly, makes a great income, $295 a year. If we look at his balance sheet, we can see the breakdown of how this goes. You should be able to see everything there. Net worth $2.4 million, but very quickly I can see that this is actually equity in a business. So he's a small business owner, and that is largely not liquid, of course. Otherwise, we've got some checking money here. That's fine. We'll take a look at the expenses in a second. We've got no savings. We'll address that. Brokerage account with some money in there. Individual accounts that have nothing in it. 401k, traditional IRA here with Jazz. Hopefully, you'll consider moving your accounts over to Jazz Wealth. Got about $107,000 there. And then this is the house, right? So this is the value of their house. This is the mortgage on the house. We've also got an auto loan here and a lot of credit cards. Okay. So when we look at their dose score, they only get a 38%, which is not good. That's why it's in red. We made it that way. We look at their goals. They want to pay off credit cards. You think, right? Okay. So we know we've got a credit card issue thing here. So when we look at the retirement progress, notice the score. This is a bigger card. We weight that a little bit heavier. This person, family, is behind on retirement progress, but I really don't care. I see the debt to income at 21%, which is not horrible, but we know it's mostly credit card debt in this, or not mostly, but we know there's a lot of credit card debt. So that's trouble. And because of that, they're not able to save very much, and they don't have very much liquid. So total liquid money, about $8,769. And where that comes from, that's going to be their checking account and the brokerage account. So I'm, not going to consider that all being liquid in this case because their burn rate's quite high. Monthly expenses of $7,000. These are expenses that do not include your debt payments. So we've got $7,000 plus the debt payments. I do want to give some credit though, because with the with the cash that they do have, they're being incredibly efficient. So that's pretty cool there. We can do that in a different video. With the investments that they have, they are allocated almost perfectly, meaning in their tax, they only have the 401k and the IRAs in this case, but the investments are nearly perfectly dialed in, and their brokerage account, of course, is nearly dialed in. It's the smaller account. And this person also has a really good mix of, they only have the pre and post-tax or pre-accounts right now, right? They only have the pre-tax 401k, the IRA. Ideally, they'd have a little Roth in there, but we're not going to pick on that either because that's pretty good. So we've got to solve for credit cards, which the client also says they do want to solve for. They want to save for the children's future. Well, there's not any future if we can't solve for the credit cards. So let's do that. When I look at the balance sheet, I see the 57. Let's call it 60,000 in credit card debt. How do we do this, right? A normal advisor would say, hey, just, snowball it or do whatever. But we know that there's not a lot of excess cash available by looking at their profile there. So we say, well, are you just going to be like paying this off for a long time here? First things first, we're going to add this. We're going to be able to actually track your interest rate, but I'm just going to guess that it's somewhere around 20%. I mean, it's got to be. So I'm going to round up, say 60,000, 20% a year in interest. They're paying, just if we go flat line here, they're paying $12,000 in interest. That's a problem. All right. We can't do anything crazy here. We can't do a line of credit against the house, right? Because what do we got here? Let's say their value of their house is actually that, and 80%. Yeah, we don't. So the loan to value for what they have, we really can't go to the bank and say, can we get a line of credit? And even we'll pay 10% and we'll cut our interest rate in half here for 60,000. There's not enough money to do that. So what are we going to do? When we look at their dose score, we know that that's our focus, right? So when we meet with this client, we're not going to be concerned with retirement for now, none of the other stuff. We're really focused on that debt to income, in particular with the credit cards. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if I were having a conversation with this client, I'm going to say either A, tell me what the interest rate is on these credit cards, or send me a statement. I want to take a look at these. I don't need to see where you're spending your money, but I want to see what the interest rates are. I would bet, so the second thing that I would do is I would bet we could get some of the interest rates lowered on these cards based on what depends on what the actual limit is. I'd put him in touch with Mama Jazz here, who's now retired, and she used to work at Capital One. I would say, hey, let's teach him the language that he needs to know to call and ask for a lower interest rate. He's going to get a few no's. That's going to be the case. But if we can lower the interest rate, that's a start. I don't like that as a long-term answer. I like that as a short-term answer. I'm thinking a little bit differently here. We've got this small business, and just to see, what does that look like? Asset. These are the current assets. There's the brokerage account. Here's the house. Here's the equity in the business. I'm going to go a little bit off the reservation here and try a couple unique things with this particular client. I'm going to suggest that we go either A, to his personal banker. If he doesn't have a personal banker, I'm going to put him in touch with my personal banker, and we're going to look to do a line of credit against the private shares in his company. It's possible. I know it could be done, maybe not at his bank, but we'll get it done through who we work with. And I'm going to suggest we do something a little bit different here. We have $12,000 in interest a year. So let's think about this. Let's say they only value the business or his business at $2 million, and they'll loan 60% against it. We don't need that much money, right? We don't need $1.2 million. I'm going to say we do things a little bit different here. So I'm not saying this is the right answer, by the way, but let me pull this in. So if we go and we say we'd like a $100,000 line of credit against the shares or his business, right? And let's say they charge 9%, because I believe that's the going rate right now. We're going to pay $9,000 in interest. Well, he was paying 12, so that's already a little bit better. But we don't need the 100,000. He only needs 60, right? Give or take. So if $60,000 of it is off to the side, pays off that debt, and it's gone, but we're paying interest on 100,000. If we took the 40,000 and we put that in tax-free municipal bonds as an example, because I don't want to raise his tax rate, he would make 1,800. So we've got, that's going to be 7,200, but for the sake of math, we'll go 9,000 minus the 1,800 in interest. He's now going to pay $7,200 in interest on this line of credit, but he's going to free up his cash, right? Think about all the extra dollars he's going to have now relative to what he has or he had before. And we're not over leveraging ourselves, because that's like 5% of the value of his business. So we went from 12,000 in interest, if we just straight line math it there, to 7,200. Oh, I multiplied. 12,000, 7,200 is $4,800 that we're saving in interest. That's $4,800 extra dollars a year that can go towards the line of credit against his shares if he wants. I don't know if he would sell share. I don't know what he's going to do here, but that's one where, hey, is it the right answer like for everybody? No, but in this case, talking with the client, I go, we have to explore this. Right? This is something we at least need to have the conversation with the banker. If they won't talk to you, I've got someone you can talk to, because $60,000 in credit card debt at 20% is just not going to do the trick. But again, it's something we can tell. At least there's something we have to do by looking at their DOE score. And it's just a fun thing that we call it here. We like to say, get your DOE straight. And we now have spent over 6 years putting this together so that I can see your entire life without seeing where you spend your money. I don't know how the family racks up all the credit card debt. There has to be a story, but I don't care if you're buying Chipotle every day. We're going to solve for what I can see. And now we can see it all in one shot. So if you like this and you like to get your DOE straight, know that this is brand new to us. We have been building it and continue to build it based on feedback from clients. We can help with every aspect of your life, not just retirement. See how it says wealth managers? We manage your whole wealth. So you can get started at jazzwealth.com if you'd like. Otherwise, schedule a call. We'll chat with you. No sales pitch. We don't do that around here. If we helped you in some way, I'm not sure this video helped the individual, but hopefully you'll hit the subscribe button. There's a lot more coming your way. All right. Adios. Introducing the DOE score.